It's time for the Warm-Ups Weekly NFL Injury Report with American Orthopedic and Sports Medicine's Dr. Steven Stoller. Visit them online at drstoller.com.
22 past the 1 o'clock hour. Rich Quinones here. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock as we do every week with our NFL Injury Report. Of course, with our good friend Dr. Steven Stoller. Check them out online, drstoller.com. And, of course, located in Englewood, New Jersey, American Orthopedic and Sports Medicine. The good doctor, always kind enough to join us on a Thursday. How are you?
I'm good, Rich. This is a good one this week.
Yeah, I know it is. All right, yeah, we got some marquee names. All right, let's run the gamut here. Let's start with the Texans defensive end, J.J. Watt. He's going to land on the IR, short-term IR, so hopefully he can come back around December. This is an injury that the back aggravated, surgically repaired back. So I know he had an off season to repair the herniated disc, and I'm just wondering.
Yes.
To me, a defensive end, right? Defensive player, you got to explode off the line. You're always twerking and tweaking your back a little bit.
Yes.
To me, this is kind of a tricky injury. Is this a rest in rehab, an aggressive rehab? Do we suspect we'll see him during the course of the season?
I would think not, because this would be. I think he's going for surgery, from what I understand, to have a second microdiscectomy. And the reason why they call it micro is they use a microscope and they want to take the least amount of bone and ligament as possible to be able to get the herniated disc out of the back that's irritating his nerve roots. From what I understand, when you have a second microdiscectomy, it is successful, so his career is not in jeopardy, but he will need extensive physical therapy and rehab. So I think rushing him back would be a terrible mistake, because the next surgery he would require would be a fusion where they have to put plate screws and bone graft, and that's a different scenario. So I think that if he cooperates, and I don't think he'll make it this season, or I wouldn't recommend it. I think he's going to do fine.
Giants running back Shane Vereen, triceps injury suffered in Sunday's loss against the Redskins. Maybe that contributed to the fumble in the second half. Now, he's going to have surgery. They haven't ruled him out just yet as far as the IR, but again, I think of a running back triceps injury, anything with the arm where you have to secure the football, whether it's the bicep or tricep. We see a lot of these injuries with guys that lift a lot of weights, and I'm just wondering, is this an injury that full recovery, estimated recovery time? Is there an opportunity? Is it shot the Giants see him again this year?
No, I think he could make it back. They're new techniques that are really great in repairing the biceps and triceps. And I think with these techniques, he should make it back in probably 2 to 3 months. I don't even think that I did a heavy weightlifter repaired his triceps a couple of months ago, and I didn't even put him in a splint. I just put him in a sling and eventually a brace, just to restrict his motion slightly. But he had a full, excellent, and quick recovery. So I think when they use these new techniques, and essentially it's, without getting into too much technical terms, it's like using a belt and suspenders. So you really get like double fixation, and you really get an excellent repair.
Again, a couple minutes with Dr. Steven Stoller, and again every week with our NFL Injury Report from the American Orthopedic and Sports Medicine. Check them out online, drstoller.com. They have a ton of patient education, breakdowns, Q&A, testimonials. Give them a ring. Appointment preferred, not needed, 201-261-2000. All right, we've been talking about some of these quarterbacks over the last several weeks. Now, Russell Wilson, we talked about that high ankle sprain. Now he has an MCL sprain. And to me, it just seems as though they want to have him rest. And you recommended that they should have him rest. Now you have an MCL sprain. You're already dealing with an ankle sprain. I mean, talk about some of these issues that he's dealing with. And there were reports that he might be out at least 3 weeks.
Well, I just read that he practiced yesterday. They had him on the field practicing. I mean, after watching the performance of the Jets and knowing that they have a bye week afterwards, I would certainly rest him, and I think everything would be fine by the time he's ready to come back. But I guess Pete Carroll thinks a one-legged Wilson is better than a two-legged Fitzpatrick. So I guess that's the only rational thought I have on that.
Well, I know they had to walk through the other day, and you're right, he did practice a little bit. I guess my concern is, you're talking about the ankle sprain, then the MCL sprain, and maybe one more hit, and, knock on wood, you don't want to see it happen, where he can really, really do some damage. And I know it's both legs respectively. So I'm just wondering, again, you're right, with that bye, I mean, typically with an MCL sprain, how much rest should a player get?
At the very minimum, if it's a grade 1, and that's the mildest of all of them, it's 10 days. Okay. And I don't think he rested 10 days, so I would not put him in.
Okay.
But, he does have an agent to guide him. They can go for second opinions.
Yeah.
Some of these players do. But that's the way I would handle it.
And I want to kind of piggyback on what you just said as far as the second opinions. Des Bryant didn't make the team meeting, missed his treatment, and missed an MRI opportunity for his injury as well. And I'm just wondering, two things. We'll get to the injury itself, but is it common in your experience that players will not do an MRI because they fear that there's more damage than they believe initially?
No, I think it's usually the teams that are more worried about finding something that they don't want to see than the players. This is, one of the few times that I've heard a player actually skip an MRI. Because, look, they have to look at it long term and, take care of their body and know what's wrong with it. So I think that was just an isolated, immature decision on his part, but it did reveal that he had a tibial plateau fracture. Now, here's the thing with an MRI. They're great for picking up soft tissue, ligament, tendon injuries, but they're not very accurate for picking up fractures. And with a tibial plateau that is right underneath where the femur, the thigh bone, attaches, and it's where your knee bends, the bone gets very thin, and a CT scan would really be appropriate. And with a CT scan now, you can get a 3D reproduction of the knee, so you're actually looking at the injury,
okay,
which is amazing. So they can determine that if it goes into the joint or how bad it is, but I would not let him weight bear depending on how severe the injury is, because the bone is really soft there, and even if it looks like on MRI and you don't see it on X-ray, within time it could depress and it could, get a slight collapse in that area, which may not bother him now, but it could bother him long term.
I was just going to say, Doc, you're also talking about a wide receiver who's big, physical, 6'2", 220, 225, depends on cutting, going up, grabbing the ball at the highest point, and then coming down with a lot of, a lot of pressure coming down on his lower body. I mean, a lot of weight coming down there.
And he's young. I mean, he's young and he's talented, and they spent a lot of money on him, so no, I would not do it. And if I wanted to be creative and get him back to play after I obtained the CT 3D reproduction, you could inject an absorbable bone cement into the area that will give it immediate support. So if I was if I wanted to be that aggressive,
right,
getting him back to play, I might do that, but I would first have to make sure that he's pain-free, and I'd have to, be confident that this would hold the fracture until it heals. And, if it's a non-displaced fracture, 6 to 8 weeks it should heal. But I don't know that because it's such a weight-bearing position that, just like you mentioned, I would let him play.
You know what? Let me throw one more at you while we got about a minute to go.
Yes.
Obviously, you're up in the North Jersey area, Jets and Giants, and this just came down as far as Eric Decker aggravated that shoulder injury in the loss to Kansas City. Now he is expected to have an MRI to determine the severity of the injury. He didn't practice yesterday, wasn't spotted at the field, and I guess that's an indication that the injury could be serious. You're a wide receiver, shoulder injury. I mean, we don't want to speculate, but at first glance, could it be potentially something that's maybe a torn labrum? Maybe there's just...
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah.
Sure. And if it is a torn labrum, that needs to be repaired. And it's not the surgery that's the problem in these cases. It's the time that it takes the ligament to heal to the bone. And that's 6 months. So even though we may get full range of motion and strength earlier, you have to protect it for 6 months. And we'll have to wait and see what the MRI shows. I don't know why they waited, because Jalen Marshall apparently has that injury, and I think he's going to be out.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. That's actually, you bring up a really good point. You would know the inner workings more than I would.
Well, the inner workings is this: is that each player, every team doctor is different, even though they're on the same team.
Right.
And they're usually selected according to which hospital sponsors the team, and they're very expensive. So it's not like someone like myself would just walk in and say, "I want to be the team doctor." Mm-hmm. They get selected by the medical centers or companies that sponsor their stadium or sponsor, their practice facility. So, you get some that have expertise in some things, and some, there may be other physicians that are better.
Yeah.
And that's really up to their agent and themselves to at least go for a second opinion.
Yeah, and we're finding sometimes they don't. It's an excellent point you bring up. Always good to talk to you. And again, guys out there,
yes.
Dr. Stoller, check him out online, drstoller.com, American Orthopedic and Sports Medicine, New Jersey's best sports medicine doctor, state-of-the-art location, Bergen County, New Jersey. Give him a ring, 201-261-2000. Week 4 starts tonight with the Thursday night game. Enjoy the slate of action. We'll talk next week, Doc. Always appreciate it.
Quick
yes.
thing, if they go on education
yes.
and they look up orthopedics, extremity, knee, tibial plateau, there's a whole video on it.
Oh, look out for the Dallas Cowboys fans out there.
All right, Rich.
All right, you got it, Doc.
Weekend.
You got it, pal.
Thanks.
Take care of yourself.
Bye.
All right, take care of yourself. Dr. Stoller, good stuff.